Three. Oh, two. Well, I guess it already started recording. Well, I guess we are both off the ball. Ep- Episode 700 with Dr. Steve Kebe. And the first thing he asks is why a tank top? And if you'll notice, anyone that watches the podcast, is this is not the really good 4K camera. You will also notice that I don't have the really good studio mic. And why am I in a tank top? Because I have all the other stuff running, all the auxiliary stuff. I don't know why these things cut out. My little homemade studio is a bunch of these sound tiles, and you can't see it, moving blankets hanging from the ceiling to suppress the noise, which turns this room into a little furnace. And you also can't see it, but piped in, I have like my own little like HVAC duct just so that there's cold air flowing in here all the time because it gets so hot in this little room. The air conditioning also cut out. So although it's February, it's about 70 in this little box right now. By the end of this episode, it will probably be 80. So I'm completely not in my element right now. And hence the tank top. And if you wonder what this is, it is a Tupperware thing that I keep water bottles in because there are so many electronics in here that I'm scared I'm going to spill something and do $10,000 worth of damage. But none of that is anything you asked about. And I know I just berated you. But before we jump into it, Dr. Kebe, please introduce yourself, sir.
Yeah, so my name's Stephen Kebe. I'm a pediatrician for over 30 years, basically in allopathic medicine and a medical doctor. And I've been seeing children ages 0 to 21 years old, and love it, enjoy it. And also been vaccinating all these kids with the common vaccines. And I've enjoyed the benefits of those vaccines. So I've been very much in favor of them. Obviously, the reason I'm here today is because I'm a lot more challenged with the current vaccine, especially when it's recommended for children. And so I'm really just trying to wrestle with that situation. As parents come to me and say, well, Dr. Kebe, what do you think about the vaccine? And, for me, it's I'm very clear that for people at risk, I think that this vaccine has been a benefit. I'm not gonna dispute that at all. That means, people that are older, people that have comorbidities like overweight, diabetes, especially, those are the big immune deficiencies. So yeah, these people need, I think the vaccine has been a benefit to them. Where I find a challenge is giving the vaccine to relatively healthy individuals. And especially when we're talking about children, I have a little bit more of a challenge as I just kind of look at, when I talk to the parents, everything we do is a risk benefit ratio, right? So we're always saying, hey, what's the upside? What's the downside? When I look at this vaccine, I'm not sure. I'm not really seeing the upside at this point in time, because when you factor into what I understand, and I think everybody understands, I think Omicron has proved it, is that the vaccine is not terribly, it's not as effective, certainly, as what was projected. So the vaccine's less than effective. It's so it's not effective. It doesn't cause you to or keep you from getting the disease, and it doesn't keep you from giving the disease. And it only makes you less sick. Well, we know statistically, children statistically have very, very little risk. In fact, if you were to look at the mortality in this age range and under 18 years old, it's pretty close to zero. Statistically, it is zero. So I'm challenged. Why are we giving this vaccine? Okay, well then, on the other hand, why not? Well, gee, it's someone will say, well, it's a great vaccine and we're protecting everybody. Well, why not? Because I'm not convinced that we have the safety data that really pushes it over the edge to make this a benefit over the risk. And that's it. We just don't, I don't know how anyone can say that we know enough. There's no way that we know enough. The studies have only gone on for, they only went on for about a year. Now it's going in its second year, and we still don't. I mean, trials that we do in the past on vaccines, those were 10-year trials, at least 5 years. You wanted to see longevity wise what that was going to do as far as any type of risk potential. So we just don't have that data, in my opinion, and that brings me caused me a great concern.
It's yeah, what you said about it, it being a benefit, it absolutely is. And that's, to me, that's one thing that was so confusing about when I had on Dr. McCullough and Dr. Malone for like the first time this past future listeners, today is Tuesday, February 8th, 2022. When I had on Malone July 1st, 2021, and I had on McCullough like a month later, and people attacked. But if you watched any part of it, they very quickly are like, oh, there's a ton of benefit. There's absolutely a ton of benefit. There's a ton of benefit. Hey, chemo has a lot of benefits. Not for me, not for you, but for a lot of people, chemotherapy is very beneficial. It's just, it's not a one size fits all. So, I mean, without going into like privacy, all of my extended family, parents, aunts, uncles, they all have the vaccine. And thank God they do, because heart problems run in my family. And I know you can maybe tie that into myocarditis. That's not this. They are all susceptible, mid to late 60s. They're all susceptible to COVID. They would be a fatality. So that's one thing. And then what you said about the trials, right? Isn't it normally 10 to 15 years, 3-phase, sometimes 4-phase clinical trials, $1.5 billion. And then we're not doing that now. But what it comes down to is the questioning. You cannot question it. And that's not science. It makes me think of, so like last week I did an episode with Dr. Bhargava, head of mRNA research at UCSF, and Martha Fowler, who's doing graduate research in, I think, nanomedicine at Rice University. And on the comments, someone had commented, I normally don't address comments ever, let alone in a podcast, but someone said, like, because I was basically going on this current rant that I'm going on. I'm like, hey, some of the vaccines, or the COVID vaccine is beneficial to some people. And someone went on this whole tangent, whatever, and they finished it with, I disagree with you, Tommy, and you have a very dangerous position. And to me, that is just as bad as the people that say everyone has to have it or you're killing grandma. The people that say no one should get it, there is no benefit, and thinking anyone can benefit is dangerous. That is the flip side of the coin of misinformation. You're both doing the same thing, but no one's actually trying to whittle down to what is the truth. There's this trench warfare of two encampments. Everybody's got a club or a tribe, and we're just going at each other's throats. But the real victim here is the objective scientific method of just trying to get down to what it is. And to me, that is, not to make light of the millions of people that have died from COVID, but to me, that's probably like the greatest casualty, is the effect this is having on objective research. So to kind of segue from that, I had, as I had sent you, I sent Dr. Kebe something I'd found on the effects of the COVID-19 vaccine or pediatric vaccines. All these points and bullets, and because you are wildly more intelligent than I am, I sent it to you. I also sent it to Dr. Bhargava, and you were nice enough to agree to come on and discuss some of these things. So it's just this for everybody listening. I'll put it in the description, or if you're watching, you should be able to see it on the screen right now. But there's just a ton of bullet points about everything. Some of the main themes: the vaccine's effective, your child may experience side effects, myocarditis is rare, there's a need for it, the vaccine got to us way too fast, mRNA does not change the DNA, long-term side effects, previously recovered, blah, 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 blah. Way too many points to cover in their entirety in this podcast, but I did send it to you and you did look over some of them. Which ones do you want to address? And as I hopefully just laid it out thoroughly, this isn't an attack on anyone. This isn't no one should get the vaccine, and this isn't everyone should get the vaccine. It's just, let's drop the World War I trench warfare, and let's try to find that middle ground into where are these beneficial? Who will benefit from these? And God bless, let them benefit from them. But there may be not for everyone. Are there side effects? Are there dangerous side effects? Should we be protecting people against them? Aside from the whole coercion and forcing and gaslighting, aside from all that stuff, they're not all good and they're not all bad, right? It's like nuclear power. It can be used to end the world. It can be also used to sustainably power cities. So with that, Dr. Kebe, excuse me, where do you want to jump into these?
Well, yes, I looked at this poster. Again, the question, the penultimate question for me is, what's the hurry? What's, why? What's the risk and benefit ratio? And then kind of coupled with the realization that this is still an experiment going on. I mean, the vaccine is the whole vaccine issue is an experiment. And, there would be many people that would argue that it's not really even a vaccine. And, there's a big changing in the definition of the vaccine. I think there's a lot of people that it would make sense to call this more genetic therapy. I think it would be more appropriate to say that. So the question is, why are we vaccinating healthy people, especially the young? And why are we pushing it so hard to the point that we're not waiting to see what the side effects are? I'll give you just an example is that, or my challenge is that with this poster is that this is coming from an epidemiologist. This epidemiologist says that, everything she says is 100% backed by scientific data. Well, I just, I looked at the podcast and, what she had said, and I thought, well, gee, the very first point of this, we as a person of authority and knowledge, people trust us. And I just want to see critical thinking, and I want to see transparency, and I want to see full disclosure. Okay. Yeah. I want to see full disclosure. Can you get it? It's like, we're like, so the very first, it's just, when I look at this poster, I just say, how could you, this isn't the way that I do medicine. When I talk to people about, I'm going to give you this medication or this therapy, this is a pro and con. It's a full disclosure as best I know. Right. Well, the very first statement on this poster says the vaccine is effective, and it says it's 90 to 100% effective in clinical. It has 90 to 100% efficiency in clinical trials. Yeah. Now, I got to ask, first of all, what does that mean? Okay. Now, if I told you, that car was red, and we all know it's yellow, and I insisted it was red, you'd start to think that that I might have trouble seeing certain colors, right? Yeah. Well, when someone says it's 100% effective, especially in light of Omicron, there's no question that this is not 90 to 100% effective in the field. Okay. In clinical trials, they can say that. Because I know I was involved in the research arm of the clinical trials as a sub investigator, and I know where that 95% effectiveness came from, that data, and that only came from 170 patients, that tested positive in the trials. So it was just test positive results. In other words, it didn't say what was the effect out in the field. How does it really help to stop COVID out in the field? Well, we know now out in the field what's happening, and Omicron, it just is blatantly shows us that vaccine and non-vaccinated people are getting infected by this. I just talked to a gentleman he's in his 70s, and he told me, he was asking me about these questions because he knew I had some information, and he said, I'm vaccinated and I got COVID. And he said, I'm just here to tell you that all my friends, they're double vaccinated with booster, and they all got COVID. He told me about, one friend, a mutual friend of ours that was deathly sick. He was rushed to the emergency room, hypoxic, and they thought he wasn't going to make it, but he was vaccinated. So we don't talk about that anyway. So when you say the vaccine is 90, even to say 100% effective, I'm just sitting there like, nothing's 100% effective. How could you believe the rest of the points when the very first point says 100% effective? Like, where's your objectivity? Who's presenting this? Yeah. Right. And so then we can just go down the row and just look at questions and
The third bullet point of the first block: vaccines work against Delta and other known variants of concern. I got the original COVID in August 2020. I was not gonna lie, I was very sick for about a week. I currently have Omicron because I tested positive for COVID again, and that's the only, Dr. McCullough said that's the only way I could have it. Granted, it's not really a good point to make because I wasn't vaccinated, but everyone's getting it. Even vaccinated people are getting Omicron. So now in two of the first three bullet points are now objectively false. I feel like that's kind of the point you're getting at. Is like, if I introduce the show and going, I am wearing a golden tank top and have the Chinese flag behind me, welcome to the podcast, you're instantly kind of going like,
Right.
Wait, no, you're not.
It's just again, let's just be honest, okay? I mean, let's have an honest discussion. I mean, don't just, don't come out and like say, shut me down. I'm an anti-vaxxer, and put me in this little pocket, and then we can't talk about it. Okay, at least if we're going to talk about it, let's just be open, and I have nurses that come to my practice, and they tell me, hey, Dr. Kebe, not everybody is in the hospital is unvaccinated. Not everybody that's dying is unvaccinated. In fact, I have administrators that say, hey, you know what? The numbers this week, 30% of the people in the ICU are vaccinated. So it's just that what we are just hammered with is that 9 out of 10, 90%, 99, there's always the unvaccinated, a disease of the unvaccinated. It's not true. Let's at least just be honest with the data. Okay. Not just absolutize and be biased, but let's present the whole picture. I mean, I kind of had, a challenge with several of these points, like the vaccine got to us too fast. She's bringing out this, okay, and again, states that, well, since 1961 that this methodology has been tested. Since 2000s, the vaccine was actually kind of underway and getting tested. Well, you're right, there were studies, but show me a study that actually was a positive study. I mean, the only studies I know about that went from the 2000s, from 1969 to 2000s, the only studies I know about, the ferrets died, the mice miscarried, and the monkeys were disabled. And the human trials, which is, the RSV virus human trial, that was stopped. The SARS-CoV-1 was stopped due to excess death. So I'm just not seeing, you just don't sit there and say, well, there's been trials, so it's okay, right? Let's talk about the trials, because everything I know, your Dr. Adita, she brought out tons of trials, and these trials were with 4 and 5 subjects, animals. It was not hundreds. Okay, these were small trials. So yes, there were trials, and then so then 150,000 people flocked to go for the trials, right? So that's supposed to imply that acceptance, right? Well, I mean, I don't know, 100. So if 150 people, from our medical standpoint, if 150,000 people flock to McDonald's and they, a Coke and fries and a Big Mac, what would our cardiologist be saying about that? Does that mean we should accept it?
Yeah. It's that there are these sort of weak arguments about everyone did it, so you should too, and it's safe. But it's also, to go back to what you said, is boxing people out. You're an anti-vaxxer, discussion's over. Now we no longer have to address Dr. Kebe or Dr. Bargava or Malone or McCullough or Fareed or Hodgkinson or Nass or anybody. But it's like, I mean, what have we been hearing nonstop for the last 2 weeks? Joe Rogan is peddling misinformation about the vaccine, COVID misinformation, dangerous anti-vaxxers, If I'm Joe Rogan and I have a podcast and I'm telling everyone that 2 + 2 = 5, and you're very concerned, you're the concerned citizen, the concerned government, and you really want people to know that 2 + 2 is 4, are you going to sit there and berate me and have coordinated attacks on me and my character and try to slander me as right wing or right wing extremist? Or are you very simply going to have, because I've been asking, as Joe Rogan, I've been asking, hey, will any of your top scientists come on? Are you going to send a guy with a whiteboard and show me that 2 + 2 is equal to 4? Maybe even make me look like an idiot and kick me in the ass. Maybe you're mature about it and you go, hey man, it's okay. Some people think 2 + 2 is equal 5. Let me show you why it's 4. No, you'd very quickly go on and show everyone why it's wrong. But if Rogan's saying 2 + 2 is equal 4 and you're trying to tell everyone it's 5, you're not going to be able to ever show them or actually have any sort of discussion with them. You're just going to browbeat them. You're just going to label them something. And then once they've been labeled that, you no longer have to address the problem. Why can't I go on? Well, anti-vaxxer, done. You put the stamp on it. Finished. It's finished. We don't have to address it anymore. It's finished. So that's just, as a non-medical professional, that's just kind of how I see it, as just an argument in general. You can't just say, oh, well, he's a, or he's a, no, like you have to address the actual question and you have to have open debate about it. Sorry for my little soapbox.
No, I mean, I think, I think we just have to, we just have to own up to our inconsistencies.
Yeah.
That's all. I've got, just talking to a friend a couple of days ago, sister's a nurse, major hospital. The nurses are being overworked, and the understaffed it's no joke. I mean, understaffing is throughout, in my neck of the woods. It's ridiculous. And what this nurse will say is, hey, I'm training every week I'm training a new a new nurse. And then they're bringing in travel nurses. We have to train them for 3 weeks, and then they get paid more than the nurses that are there, and they're not, they just don't do the job. So these nurses are burnt out. Okay. Well, what's going on? The mandates have affected this. We just admit it. I mean, I don't just,
Yeah.
we have to just come to grips with the vaccine has not been as effective as it was supposed to be. I mean, come to grips with that. Just admit that. We just gotta, let's all get together and figure out how to solve it instead of just tripling and doubling and tripling down. So now what happens with that same nurse? They offer great rewards for them to be able to come to work, extra shifts. And then that nurse says, listen, I'm burnt out. I'm
Yeah.
burnt out. No money's worth it. And then what they do is then they send out a memo to the hospital nurses and say, listen, if you have COVID, you can still come to work. All right. So now where does that fit when before we said we're going to vaccinate everybody because we want to protect everyone with the vaccine? And then we sit there and go, okay, well, because we're short staffed, we're going to compromise the patient. And we're going to say, come on in, because even though you have COVID, if you're healthy enough to work, then come on to work. Now, how is that promoting the safety of the hospital, the safety of the individual or whatnot? So it's just, a bit challenging. And then, when we get into these discussions with our colleagues, we're just asking these questions. Okay. I mean, come on, the inconsistencies are blatant. Let's just talk about them. Why is in Israel, why are they highest vaccinated and they're successfully vaccinated and they're scrambling? They have the high, very high morbidity, very high mortality rate. Let's talk about it. Why is that happening? When that gets brought up, then somebody will say, well, just, or else if we bring up, well, the masks. So now it's N95 masks, right? Well, before the cloth masks were okay. Now everybody's saying, no, they're not okay. Well, you mean then they weren't okay before, or they're just not okay because Omicron just is this sneaky little virus that sneaks around the cloth masks, right?
Yeah.
So now the N95 is the answer. Well, then you say, well, does this, when you talk to us scientists, fellow doctors, you say, does this make sense? And then when it comes down to what I come to, I'm sorry, I hit the brick wall that says, listen, we just need to do what this is what the people that are telling us to do. We have to follow the guidelines. I hear, I'm not interested in your conspiracy. I'm just interested in following your guidelines.
Mhm. Dr. Keep. I think he might have just accidentally exited out. I'll fill the dead air. Yeah, that's the thing about you just disappeared. That's the thing about, kind of the idea of like misinformation is, I think that's what Rogan said in his first apology video. You disappeared. Um, is what was misinformation a year ago, time and time again, has turned out to be accurate. And if not accurate, at least a reasonable hypothesis. Like, did it come from a lab? No, you're a hysterical racist. And now it's like, oh, well, there was a coronavirus research lab in that same place. All right. If you educated I hope he's kidding. But or yeah, or the idea of who's Susan Chen, is that the physician on CNN who said towards the end of December, she's like, don't wear cloth masks. Cloth masks are little more than facial decorations. Here he is, he's back. He's back. That was a quick trial by the FBI. Came in, gotcha. They replaced you with the body double. That is, I monologue all the time. Like if someone's like thing cuts out, I have no problem. I can do whole hours by myself. I have found the single most difficult thing to do is to fill the dead air while texting the guest saying, "Hey, your connection just cut out." It is the apex of juggling during the podcast. But so yeah, sorry you broke away. But we're talking about misinformation, and if it's wrong now, then it's always been wrong. It's not that the Earth became a sphere; it's that it never was flat. And the only way we can get to that point is by having open discussion. The examples I just gave while you were away is, yeah, like you said, I think Dr. Chen, is that the Asian woman on CNN who said towards the end of December, don't wear cloth masks.
Oh yeah.
A little more than facial decorations. Well, the laws of physics of effusion and diffusion and particle disbursement didn't change in December 2021. They've been the same forever, which means that masks never worked. Well, back then we didn't know that. Well, that's the problem with labeling things misinformation, is we never actually get to the part of the process of getting to the truth is you do take some wrong turns. The Earth isn't flat. I think it's a triangle. It's like, well, that might be wrong too. And it's you get to it's a sphere or an oblong, obloid, whatever Neil deGrasse Tyson says. But that's the problem with this. So when people say if you get this, you will not get COVID. Okay, well, you might get COVID. You will not pass COVID. All right, well, you will not go to the hospital. You might go to the hospital. You will, all these things. And if we get to a point where we go, well, we now know that that's not misinformation, those are actual facts, then that means they've always been facts. So where are we right now? To quote Agent Smith from Men in Black, 500 years ago, you knew the Earth was flat. 300 years ago, you knew that like man couldn't fly. 100 years ago, you knew that man couldn't go to the moon. And yesterday, you knew aliens didn't exist. What will you know tomorrow? So what are we talking about right now that in a year we'll go, yeah, well, we didn't know that was a thing in February 2022. We now know that it's not misinformation. That's the very problem, though, is by not having open discussion. That's how we get to it, is we war game and debate. And by default, 99% of the conclusions we come to will be wrong until the key unlocks and we go, there's the right answer.
Tommy, it just feels that we've got, unfortunately, we've gotten so straight down the line, so sure that it's almost impossible to pivot. So, we've said masks, it's become universal that masks are important. Okay. So how do you pivot out of that? But we have to start talking, my guy, that's my 75-year-old guy that just called me today. He said, Dr. Kebe, now I'm vaccinated and stuff, and I just got over COVID. He said, but I want to tell you something else. I travel a lot and I use the N95 mask. And he goes, I just keep a pulse oximeter on my finger. And he goes, that when I'm breathing out of that N95 mask, he says, my oxygen goes from 98 to 93 while I'm breathing that mask. Now, I don't know. I don't personally know the studies and stuff, but for me thinking about when I wear that N95, I know that's uncomfortable, that's sealing. Now, what's happening if I'm wearing an N95? What's happening to the child? Okay, just physiologically, what are we doing long-term breathing through a mask? And are we creating hypoxia, hypercapnia? Are we creating issues? I mean, are we discussing that? Are we, I mean, it seems, are we talking about for children? Are we talking about, we say we want them to wear masks so that they can protect the elderly, they'll protect the people around them, right? Well, what are we thinking about with the children? I'm a pediatrician, I'm an advocate for the kids, right? So I'm an advocate for the kids. I'm going to say, look at what are we losing in development? Are we, facial expressions are so super important.
Yeah.
Smiles, I mean, it's so great. It's important. It's life. And these kids are deprived of it. Okay. How is that hurting them? How are we contributing to isolation through this? So risk benefit. I mean, how does it make sense? It's beside me, in my town, in Columbus, Ohio, you don't have to wear masks when you're eating, right? So we go in the restaurant, and I come to the restaurant, and we have to have a mask to be seated. And then once we get to the table, the virus stops right there when we sit down, and so we just have a conversation with each other, and every wedding reception or any public event, everybody goes to it. They come with a mask, and then they all sit around. Everybody sits down to eat. Everybody takes off their mask. Next thing, everybody's going to the bar without their mask, and it goes on and on. Or at my church, that everybody wears masks in the pews, and the priest does not wear the mask up on the altar. But then when somebody comes up to read from the same microphone or sing from the same microphone, they come up without a mask. Okay, so they can be heard, and so they're putting their unmasked
And
germs there, and then the 75-year-old priest is coming over to speak at the same place, and so it's just not consistent. I'm Catholic. Everybody comes up to communion, so they'll come in. They come up to communion. They take their mask off to receive their communion, right? And so again, it's like you just can't time this thing. Is it really worth putting the mask on when it's not really shown to be effective? I mean, our uses are not effective, right? Up to this date, we've been pulling them off the rear view mirror. I pull out of my pocket when I go into Lowe's. Everybody does that, right? And so, come on, we know that's not it. Now, what about just somebody who's infected? Now, I just don't understand if somebody's infected and they're breathing an N95 mask. Okay, I mean, aren't we just kind of breathing and rebreathing our virus? It just makes sense to me, that we're just going against like sort of just the nature in all of this.
It's in my, again, armchair psychologist, it's like it's the comfort of just, we're doing something. Not for me, but I think for a lot of people, it's the comfort of we're doing something. I mean, my mom's a nurse. I get sick all the time. When I was little, she'd always say, like, change your water bottle. Stop reinfecting yourself. Like, you got to change your sheets. You got to change when you're sick, you're reinfecting yourself. But not only that, I mean, it is a weird charade, because I mean, I worked at a liquor store summer 2020, and the manager was super kind of paranoid about COVID, which is whatever, his older guy. And we'd all be sitting in there and sitting around the kind of like the cash register, like 5 of us just kind of shooting the shit, and no one would have a mask on, including the manager. And we'd see a car, you look through the window, you'd see an SUV pull up, bunch of young guys about to go to the beach, getting some beer. You'd see them get out of the car. They didn't have the masks on. They would get out. They'd all mask up. We'd go, oh shit, they're coming in. We'd all
You got to put your mask on.
And we do the little school play of liquor shopping during a pandemic. They'd walk outside, rip it off. We'd see them go outside, pop it off. What are we doing? But if you question it, it's, well, we're in a pandemic, Tommy. We're in a pandemic. We're taking drastic measures. Well, no, what we're really doing is we're completely negating independent thought, the burden of independent thought. I get it. You're scared. We don't know what it is. Maybe it makes grandma or maybe it makes the 2-year-old feel better. They go, "Can I put a mask on?" You go, "Whatever makes you feel better. There's no monsters under the bed." Your dad knows there aren't any monsters under the bed, but maybe he'll come and look under the bed just for you. Okay, I get it. I'm not heartless, but we're 2 years into this thing. We've been running this thing globally for 2 years. If we've seen how that lack of logic applies to masks, and now it's just blatantly clear, then how come that doesn't apply to the vaccines as well? And unlike a mask, or I'm just throwing a mask on and who knows, maybe my blood oxygen drops a couple points. Well, how about instead of a cloth mask, now we're going to putting a syringe of a brand new product that Pfizer is suing to not release the original data from for 55 to 75 years. And now you want that to, let's just look at what it actually is. Let's not call it a vaccine. It's a mystery product in a syringe with a pointy end that you will use to puncture my deltoid and put it into my bloodstream. But we can't talk about it. And I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm also saying, why can't we discuss it? Especially with kids, statistically, unless they have comorbidities or, they, God bless, some kids are very sick. They're statistically immune from dying from this, yet we're lining them up. Lollipops, candy. Big Bird says, get it. How does that sit with you as a physician? How are you? How do you keep your composure?
Yeah. Well, again, it's like an epidemiologist. I was having a very good discussion with an attorney in California, and he said this was just from his mouth. He said he knows 3 epidemiologists, and they all said the same thing, that as far as the safety data goes, that their experience with vaccines is that if after 60 days something bad hasn't happened, it's not going to statistically happen, right? That's been the experience, right? And I said, wait a minute, that's an epidemiologist said that? Now, again, he may be misquoting, so I'll grant that. But I said, we just had a conversation about this is different. This vaccine has never been done before. It's a messenger RNA, it's a genetic modification. And all of a sudden we were talking. He said, thank you, Dr. Kebe. I never was able to have a rational conversation with anybody. You helped me to understand this. And then he told me about the epidemiologist, said, it's okay because, the side effects after 60 days, if you don't have it, it's fine. Well, I said, well, wait a minute. That epidemiologist surely didn't say that, because surely they know that this is you can't compare this, right? You can't compare this with other vaccine, except the only thing that we can compare is we know that from the VAERS reporting, vaccine adverse effect reporting system, that they report that there's more side effects, more adverse effects from this vaccine than there from this inoculation that there have been in all total years in the past, as reported. So, and I just point out there's a study, for instance, let's talk about this. There's a study, from UCLA, and they were looking at mammograms, post-vaccine mammograms, and they were finding they were finding an obvious increased amount of lymphadenopathy in the axilla of the same arm that was vaccinated, right? So they're finding some stuff that wasn't abnormal. And so what they did follow it, and it started to dissipate, right? So then the study said, well, it's okay. It created this thing, but it's okay in long term. Okay, wait a minute. How do we know that it's okay? I know that people are getting suspicious about cancer, increased rates of cancer, be it breast, brain, any lymphomas, leukemias. There is an uptick of cancers. We know it. When I talk to my colleagues, they say, yeah, I'm seeing more of it. But let's talk about this. That objective study says something is going on here that's awry. Furthermore, then in this poster that you showed me, it said, well, yes, young adolescents females will have a change in their menstrual cycle. Well, I know also postmenopausal women that have had periods after having the vaccine. So it's pretty clear something's happening biologically and physiologically to our entire body. It's not just, it's a systemic type of reaction. And you just have to sit there and say, and you can't poo-poo and say, well, it's just the body creating immunity. It's just the vaccine working. Wait a minute. There's something happening and changing. And you have to say, listen, it is a genetic vaccine. We can't get around that. It is a genetic vaccine. So this poster says, well, the messenger RNA doesn't stay around very long. Well, we don't, I mean, yeah, we kind of think that it's coated by by a nanoparticle, which helps it to get its way in vitro, right? So yes, there is a shell coat that helps it. How long is that kept from being broken down? The nanoparticle itself has been found to be toxic to epithelial cells around the myocardium, which is probably what's fueling the myocarditis, right? So it's a vaccine, but even short-lived messenger RNA, we don't know how many spike protein that thing can spit out. How many molecules, atoms, how many genetic changes can that spit out in its very short life, which we don't know. It is, let's just be honest, this is a new vaccine. The studies have not, in the past, have not been favorable towards this vaccine. We have to just be fair and honest about that. The studies have not been favorable. It is a new vaccine. It is a genetic modification. And yes, there are things in our bodies that are happening, that are changing, that we didn't expect. And we're just explaining them away with, that's just the way the body works. Yet in the VAERS, the VAERS data, there's 20,000 deaths that are reported to it. There's I don't know how many hundreds of, now well over 100,000 adverse reactions, I'm sure. There's a lot of things that are being reported, and we know that those things are underreported. We don't report those things on a regular basis. This is a volunteer reporting system. So on the front end, we're not giving informed consent. We're not telling that patient, we're not letting that pediatric patient know, hey, mom, this is a possibility. We are seeing these things. We are seeing changes in adolescence. We are seeing changes in mammograms. We are seeing changes. There is in myocarditis. There are reactions. We are seeing these. You need to know that, okay? And you need to know that, and you need to be fully informed. And then on the back end, you need to say, and we don't know long term. We do not know long term what this vaccine can do to your child. And that's my challenge. I just don't know. I just don't know long term, and I cannot look my parent in the face and that 5-year-old in the face and say, I guarantee that this vaccine is totally safe for you, when you are pretty close to totally safe from the actual infection itself. I mean, statistically speaking, the death rate is low. Okay. Counterpoint. The poster says, well, the COVID death.
Where are you on the poster?
I'm just looking at the COVID death has made it to the COVID-19 deaths in children have made it in the top 10.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, I looked at this data, and so if you get down to the bottom, the top one, accidental injury and so forth, that's like 800 to 900 per 20 million. Okay. That's the rate of death by accident. Then you go down to number 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those start to be getting, we're talking about it was like 30 per 20 million, that COVID deaths. Okay, so 30 per 20 million, that's about 1 in a million. And do you know what the chance of dying from getting struck by lightning, or actually the chance of getting struck by lightning is? I don't know. I looked it up. They said it was 1 in a million, right? So I guess if the COVID death rate unvaccinated is 1 in a million compared to getting struck by lightning, I guess we shouldn't be going outside then.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't want to take that risk. So risk benefit, I'm just not seeing it. Why this vaccine is so great when we do not know long term. So that's my big challenge. We don't know long term. And I'm going to stand on that for most of it. You cannot tell me that long-term what this vaccine, the implications of this vaccine. Therefore, why do we do it with young, healthy children? Okay. End of story. Risk benefit. That's how I see it.
I mean, it's physically, as in like the laws of physics, it's impossible for us to know long term, because it's only been, I mean, it's February 2022. We've been in the pandemic for what? I mean, I guess you could say December 2019. So we've been in it for like 27 months, and even the vaccine hasn't been out that long. It's literally impossible to know long-term effects. And if we know long-term effects, that implies something much greater. That implies time travel, but we're not there. And now part of me thinks that, us talking about this and saying how blatantly clear it is that something's awry, that something's dangerous, that the stuff's being covered up, there's coordinated suppression and censorship. It's almost like I can't help but get this feeling that, it's like your dad, like, oh, got your nose, they got your nose.
Yeah.
And it's like if I sat there and tried to, I was arguing, I was like, you don't have my nose, that's your finger. I can still smell, I can still see it in the mirror. I still have a nose. And my dad's going, I got your nose, I got your nose. At a certain point, I have to start to think, he knows that I know that, no pun intended, that I know that he knows he doesn't have my nose. What's the real reason he's doing this? So when I look at all this stuff, it's so clear that it's piling up that almost no part of me thinks that anyone at Pfizer even remotely believes this. They're not saying the quiet part. The quiet part is no shit. We're printing money right now. We are making money. We're making dump trucks of money. That's why we're doing this. That's the quiet part. And that's me talking. That's not Dr. Kebe talking.
Yeah. I don't go there as much
Sure.
as, I think just, back to, I really
Sure. We'll stay
focus on what you're talking about. Is the discussion part.
Sure.
I mean, you just allow people like myself to question it without being censored, without being canceled and so forth. And all we're doing is we're questioning with the same logic that we used before. It was the same logic that we grew up with. We learned, critical thinking, just again, just to jump back into the last point on the slide on the poster, it says that, previously recovered still need the vaccine. So like we keep on hammering. We forget about natural immunity. We totally forgot about natural immunity. We totally forgot that. We're totally forgetting that this vaccine, this inoculation, is just a repeat. It's just a repeat of what was developed in the very beginning that was supposed to go against the legacy, the early initial viruses. It is not. If we think that science is being able to come up with and keep up with mutations, then okay, yeah, if we really think that can happen, but if it can happen, then why does the government, why do we buy, enough vaccine for, 4 or 5 doses more? I've heard other countries have 10 to 15, stockpiled vaccines to take care of the next several years, but all that are stockpiling is the exact same thing that was made and produced in the beginning. So we're not keeping up. When you say the 2 + 2 is 4, 1 + 3 is 9, it just isn't adding up to say, how can you critically think that a booster that is the same as what it was before is gonna make a difference now after generations of mutations? Yeah. It just defies my logic. And then what happened to natural immunity? Natural immunity doesn't count. So now, the way the virus hits us is it hits us through the nose, right? The nasal passageways into the lungs. That's why we have special secretory IgA. Nobody talks like, is that all of a sudden discounted? What I learned about was secretory IgA was important because it created the cascade of immunity that started to happen. It was the initial sentinel that, the Paul Revere says, hey, the virus is coming, rev up your immunity, right? Yeah. And so all of a sudden, it's like we think that bypassing that putting something in the arm. It just doesn't make sense. So we think that our man-made immunity is better than the way God constructed our body. I mean, if you believe that, then stay consistent with it. If you think that your body doesn't respond and make sense and understand things way more than science does, then, then stay with it. Okay. But this defies, how could you say natural immunity is important? And by the way, I will just say, if people are listening, the way this virus, one of the greatest pieces of advice is to have the nasal irrigation with, the iodine nasal irrigation. Look it up, but irrigate your nose and sinuses and your throats. That's where the virus lives. We can do way better for every type of virus by just doing that. So, keep that in your mind. And we know that vitamin D is super, super important in studies. Why isn't the government just saying that? Why don't you just tell everybody that? I get washing your hands, great. Okay. But I think if they're going to tell people to wear masks, they should tell people to irrigate their noses. I mean, that has more disease prevention than the mask, I'm sure. I don't want to be absolute. I don't want to fall into that.
Sure.
It makes sense to me. If I can rinse out that virus with a disinfecting solution, I think I'm going to be, helping my body fight this infection pretty well. And vitamin D, everybody take vitamin D, because vitamin D is so necessary. We're all deficient in it. And there are studies that show that people have more significant reactions that are vitamin D deficient. So, those are just little things. Like, we're not talking about those things. We're just hammering on, get a vaccine and wear a mask. It's just all I really just hear is the solution from my standpoint.
Yeah. It's just do this. It's just the only solution we have. Just hit it with the hammer. Yeah. I can only feel like the only thing I can really conclude is no one wants to look at it, because we found what we thought was the way out, a vaccine and masks. And again, I'm playing armchair psychologist here. We're just kind of sticking it. I don't mean us. We're clearly not. I think a lot of people might just be sticking with it. Even it doesn't matter if it's not working. If they're just still going to do the thing, right? We're just going to keep doing the thing anyway, because it's what we've been doing. We go to the same bar every Thursday night. It doesn't matter if it stopped being fun a decade ago. It's what we do. I don't know. I've had on so many doctors. You, Ursa, Merrick, Bhargava, Malone, McCullough, Fareed. It goes on forever and ever and ever. I've received personal high-class lectures from all of you. Things you'd normally have to pay for. I don't have a conclusion. The conclusion I came up with was what I said earlier about money, but that's me. Again, I don't speak for you. I don't speak for any of the physicians I've interviewed. That's just my non-medical professional idiot in a tank top in a room surrounded by moving blankets. So don't take that to the bank. But nothing else makes sense. Nothing else makes sense. It's your dad taking your nose, but you're 30. You're not a kid. I don't know why he's taking. Is he just messing with me? I don't know. I'm at a loss. That's why I wanted to bring you on to talk about this. And I'm more confused than earlier.
Let me throw you out. Just, again, sort of my mantra has been, transparency, consistency, equal time, right? Equal full disclosure.
Yeah.
Fair. Let's be fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, why? What is this doing to us? What's it doing to our government? What's it doing to our country? That's the challenge. Like, what's it doing to us that I know that the physicians are turning away people that are unvaccinated, and pointing the finger at them. You should have got this is because you didn't get vaccinated. So on one hand, I hear people say at my church, they say, wear the mask to be charitable to the other person, right? And so they're saying, they're preaching this, do it because it's a charitable thing to do. And yet, on the other hand, the charity, where does the charity stop? From a charity standpoint, we should be all arm in arm saying, I'm not getting this vaccine until Africa and all the, we're hoarding. Let's say we got 10 vaccines tenfold. And so we're, give it to the people who need it. Right. And then we go, and then, so these truckers, they're standing up for a cause. Okay. And then this is charity to say, well, no, you can't have food, you can't have gas, and all of a sudden you can't receive funds for, from people who want to give to your cause. It's just, the charity is just stopping, and it's so unilateral. Like, you do this to be charitable. Okay. You wear the mask to be obedient. I mean, let's just listen to authority, and be obedient. What's the big deal? They say you're helping us feel better, everybody feel better. Right. But then turn it around, and the other hand, there are people that just really feel concerned that this vaccine is not safe.
Yeah.
Why can't you listen? Why is it unfair for somebody to say, I just don't think this is safe for me, and I don't want to do it? Okay. And again, Omicron has shown it. I mean, everybody that listens to this podcast or listens really with their heart, look around, and they're going to see the inconsistency. Okay. This vaccine, I mean, Omicron, everybody got infected. I know Omicron has infected vaccine and fully vaccinated, mid-vaccinated, whatever your vaccine status is. It is no respecter of it. Okay. Look around, look inside your heart, and say, why isn't this adding up? And why am I over a vaccine that is so ineffective? Okay. Just as you see with Omicron, why am I forcing these truckers? Why am I saying, I'm going to fight you to the end for the sake of a vaccine? Is it worth it? That's the big question. All of you, is it worth it for the sake of this vaccine? Is it worth what we are doing to each other by not, where's the charity?
That's exactly what it is, man. It makes me think of like high school, like the first time getting drunk. It's maybe like, my mom will cry. I was probably like 15 or 16. So the first time I actually kind of got drunk, and I had friends that were drinking before me. I remember I had some friends that drank in like 7th grade. We'd go to like a high school football game, and they'd be drunk, and they'd offer something to me, and I'd be like, I don't want that. I don't want that. And they peer pressure, you get made fun of, but I didn't want it. And then I finally drink when I'm 16. I'm like, oh, this is fun. But like my best friend's like, I don't want it. And you kind of push, he doesn't want it. At a certain point, you do kind of go, hey guys, he doesn't want to drink. Just leave him alone. He just doesn't want to drink. And eventually everyone goes, yeah, I mean, I guess we can still have fun. Whatever. We'll play video games. All right, yeah, fine, whatever. But eventually you do get, you sure you don't want to smoke, man? You never smoked pot before? I just don't want to. I'm not comfortable with it. Well, don't you know no one's ever, I get it. No, thank you, Tommy. I see it all the time. You sure don't want to come on my podcast? I'm just not a podcast guy. I'd love to talk to you, man. It would be so cool to in it. What, are you worried about your job? I'm just not a podcast guy. Eventually you go, I get it. Sorry. You just have to kind of, because that is when you're coming from your heart, where you go, you're right. Sorry. That is coming from your heart. That's charity. Why won't they take the vaccine? Maybe they just don't want it. Maybe they're not comfortable. Leave them alone. And it's not even working. And you see these people who it's not just, I don't want to do it. Sure. Okay. I'll take a beer. You're holding them down, and they're saying, I will fight you to the death. Don't make me drink this. They're there with their trucks. They're getting arrested. They're bringing in the military, and they're saying, I don't want this. I'm willing to go to jail. I don't want. At a certain point, you got to look in the mirror and go, guys, he doesn't want the beer. He doesn't want to smoke the joint. These are adults with families who are parking their trucks in downtown Ottawa, and they're trying to block the border. They don't want it. Like, how much more clear does it have to be? They don't want it. You're going to get fired if you don't take it. Then fire me. I mean, at a certain point, you got to go, I think they just don't want it. They just don't want it. You don't have to provide a reason. All right. Did you already recover? Do you have natural immunity? No. You don't get a reason. I don't have to say, I got the COVID vaccine, so let me in a Walmart. And I also don't have to say, I don't have the vaccine, but I do have immunity. No. It's none of your business. No, leave me alone. I'm going in. if I don't want to get the shot, end of discussion. What happened to HIPAA? What happened to HIPAA, where if you say, what do you want? Even if you were prescribed Tylenol, no, you're allowed to guard that and go, you don't get to know. You don't get to know. I mean, doctors have, I remember in high school, doctors would call my mom or my mom would call them. My mom would be like, and they'd be like, well, Miss Carey, we can't tell you what it is. She'd be like, it's my son. They'd be like, it's HIPAA. So I'd have to get in the phone and be like, no, this is Tommy. You're allowed to tell her. Okay, it's penicillin. Even something that's nothing. So as you said, look in your heart. Like everyone, like, something's not right. And I don't even mean it's some conspiracy. Something's not right. It's not right. And furthermore, like you said about doubling and tripling and quadrupling down, even when it's not working. What did we just see this past fall? Finally withdrawing from the Middle East. We knew it wasn't working 5 years in and 10 years in. And what did we keep doing? We kept doubling down and tripling down. And a lot of people were killed and maimed for life. And there are millions of civilians dead and trillions of dollars gone that could have gone towards infrastructure and education and healthcare. But we just kept doubling down. And and what's something that everyone kind of agrees on? Maybe it wasn't the best withdrawal, but dude, we had to get out. We had to get out. Nothing was working. At a certain point, you got to go. And I get it. You chip on your shoulder. Nobody likes a bruised ego. I know I don't. But sometimes you got to go, yeah, maybe, guys, I think we got duped. Maybe it's not working. Maybe we're wrong. But if we don't do that, we're going to follow this thing beyond the gates of hell, tearing each other apart and forgetting. I mean, as you said perfectly, is it really worth what we're doing to each other? And no, not at all. And I know I just kind of went on my own soapbox, but Dr. Kebe, I'll let you close this out. You got any closing thoughts? And then we'll wrap this one up.
I would just say, again, is it worth what we're doing to the children? Is it really worth, risk benefit? Is it worth it? The masks, making the kids wear masks throughout the whole day, creating a stigma of fear and paranoia, not really paying attention to the whole body of community and what we need with facial expression and all that sort of thing. That's a challenge. Do the vaccines work? Is it worth pounding these vaccines down anybody? Okay. I mean, I can understand if we made the argument for the people that are high risk. I mean, if you're at high risk, then mandate it there. Okay. But to the whole public, to everybody, to mandate it the way they're doing it. I mean, and then no consistency. Okay. So it's you just, like, case in point, the nurse that we were talking about, the case in point, the people that have natural immunity, they're treated differently than people who have vaccinated immunity. And there's a whole punitive nature to mask, the whole punitive nature to the vaccines, and it's not charitable. And let's start looking at what is charitable. Why are we changing things because it doesn't fit? Why did there were other, riots and firebombing and all that sort of thing, and nobody was withholding gasoline and food from that. So it's just, let's just be consistent, folks. Let's just be consistent around and let's talk, because it's called compromise. I'm not all right on everything that, we're not fully, the people that are speaking the language that we're speaking are not fully right. You aren't fully, the people that are speaking against the language we're speaking aren't fully right. Let's come together and talk about it. That's all I'm asking. Let's look critically. Let's be transparent, and let's be full in our disclosure. That's all.
Yeah. No. I'm not right. I've interviewed a lot of doctors. I guarantee you, I've said a lot of wildly incorrect things in there. That's all right. It's all right. It's okay. You can be wrong. That's how we get to the center of this. But we're gonna tear each other apart if we don't do this. But with that, for everybody, I'll put a link to your music on Spotify in the description, as well as a link to this little poster infographic thing. But Dr. Steve Kebe, episode 700, my man. Thank you. Lucky number 7. And everybody, thank you for listening. And real quick, Dr. Kebe, I'm gonna stop recording and